The sun had barely risen when I stepped off the plane, the cool air of home greeting me like a long-lost friend. It felt strange, this feeling of calm after a year of chaos, of uncertainty, of war. The sound of engines, the harsh commands, the constant movement were all a distant memory. But now the world seemed so still. So quiet. Almost too quiet. I had been away for 365 days, serving overseas in a military operation that stretched my limits and tested my resolve. I fought for my country, gave everything I had, but I was finally back. All I could think about was seeing my wife, Chloe. I'd imagined this moment over and over during those long nights overseas, the joy of holding her again, the relief of being home. We had talked about our plans, about growing old together, and I couldn't wait to make those plans a reality. But when I pulled up to the house, everything was off. The porch light wasn't on and the front door was cracked open. I wasn't expecting a grand homecoming, but I certainly wasn't expecting this. I stepped inside, the air smelling stale, the silence unnerving. "Chloe!" I called out, but no answer. I walked through the house, the one we had made together, the one we'd spent years building, both literally and metaphorically. The living room, where we'd shared countless nights, was empty. The shelves that used to be filled with our photographs, souvenirs, and little mementos were now bare. I didn't know it then, but that emptiness was only the beginning of what I would soon uncover. I found an envelope on the kitchen counter. My name was written on it in Chloe's familiar handwriting. I felt a cold chill run down my spine, a gut feeling telling me something was terribly wrong. As I opened it, I read her words that shattered my world. "Dylan, I'm sorry, but I couldn't wait for you any longer. I made the decision to sell our house and start over. I know this might be hard for you to understand, but it's something I had to do for myself. I hope you can forgive me someday. Chloe." I stood there, staring at the letter, feeling the weight of her words sink in. She had done what? She sold our home? Without telling me? Without even a discussion? The woman I had trusted, the woman I had pledged my life to, had made a decision that not only affected her but tore apart everything we had built together. The anger didn't come immediately. First, there was disbelief, confusion. This couldn't be real, right? I was home, safe, and ready to rebuild our life, and this was what I came back to. I could feel my heart racing as the full weight of her betrayal began to sink in. I wasn't just angry, I felt a sense of loss. Not just for the house, but for everything I had believed in. How could she do this to me? While I had been out there, fighting for our future, she had made the decision to leave it all behind. I walked around the house, the feeling of emptiness settling deeper into my chest. The memories we had created, the life we had dreamed of, it was all gone. Everything we had worked for felt like it had been swept away in an instant. But one thing I knew for sure, this wasn't over. Chloe might have thought she could take everything from me, but she had made one mistake. She underestimated me. I wasn't just going to let her get away with this. I didn't know what I would do yet, but I knew one thing. I was going to get my life back. I wasn't going to let her actions define me. I wasn't going to stay a victim of her decisions. I had fought for so much already. I had survived in the field, and now I was going to fight for everything that mattered, my home, my future, and my dignity. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about reclaiming my life, my future. And Chloe wasn't going to stop me. That night, I didn't sleep. The anger burned inside me, sharp and intense, but it wasn't just about what Chloe had done, it was about what it meant. How had I allowed myself to be blind to the cracks in our marriage? How had I let the man I'd become on the battlefield slip away to the point where I couldn't see the betrayal unfolding right in front of me? I stared at the walls of the empty house. The memories that were supposed to bring comfort now only reminded me of everything I had lost. My mind raced through the years we'd spent together, the laughs, the struggles, the plans for our future. And now they were all gone. But I knew this, I wasn't just going to sit here and let this happen. I had fought through much worse in the war. I had survived things that most people couldn't even imagine. I wasn't going to let her take everything from me without a fight. Not my dignity, not my home, and not my future. The first thing I needed to do was get in touch with a lawyer. I had to understand what my options were and how I could legally fight for the house that had been sold without my consent. But even more than that, I needed to figure out how I could regain control of my life. I had to stop being the victim in this story. I had to take the reins back. The next day, I scheduled an appointment with a lawyer, someone I knew could navigate the complexities of this situation. The lawyer was sharp, no nonsense, and had a reputation for getting results. When I walked into his office, I knew I was in the right place. "Mr. Cooper," he greeted me as I sat down across from him, "I understand you've got a tough situation on your hands." I nodded, feeling the frustration well up inside me again. My wife sold her home while I was deployed. "I'm not asking for sympathy, I just want to know what my options are." He pulled out some papers, scanning them quickly. This is a mess, but it's not impossible to fix. We'll need to investigate the sale of the house. If she sold it without your consent, we can potentially reverse the transaction. We'll need to gather all the evidence we can, her financial records, the sale documents, and anything that shows you were unaware of her intentions. I felt a small surge of relief. I wasn't powerless in this situation. I had options. The anger in my chest didn't disappear, but it was now paired with a focus that I hadn't felt in weeks. I was going to fight, and I was going to win. Over the next few days, I gathered everything I could. I went through our old records, contacted the bank, and started piecing together the timeline of events. I learned that Chloe had sold the house without any formal notification to me. She had signed all the paperwork claiming I had agreed to it, something I knew wasn't true. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a calculated move to take everything from me. I couldn't help but think about how she had manipulated the situation, how she had used my absence to justify her actions. She thought I was out of the picture, that I would be too far away to do anything about it. But she underestimated me. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. As I met with the lawyer again, I could feel the determination building inside me. "Let's do this," I said, my voice firm. "I want to take this to court. I want her to face the consequences." The lawyer nodded. "We're going to make sure she can't escape this. The facts are on your side." As the case took shape, I began to feel a sense of power I hadn't known in a long time. I wasn't just going to sit back and let Sarah take everything from me. I had been through too much, had sacrificed so much to let her destroy the life I had worked for. But I knew there would be obstacles ahead. Chloe wasn't going to let this go without a fight. I didn't care. She had chosen her path, and now she was going to have to face the consequences. The trial date was set. The day I would stand in court and fight for what was mine, not just the house, but my dignity. And I wasn't going to lose. The day of the trial arrived with an intensity one couldn't shake. I had fought hard to get here, but this was the moment of truth. The house wasn't just a piece of property anymore. It was a symbol of everything I had lost, everything I had worked for, and everything I was willing to fight for. Walking into the courtroom, my heart pounded in my chest. The air felt thick, the tension palpable. I wasn't just fighting for the house. I was fighting for my dignity, my self-respect, and a future I refused to let Sarah destroy. Chloe was already there, sitting on the other side of the room, her lawyer beside her. She didn't look at me when I walked in. Her face was a mask of calm, but I could see the flicker of nerves in her eyes. For someone who had made such a bold move, she wasn't nearly as confident as she appeared. The judge entered, and we all stood. The proceedings began, and I sat there, trying to steady my breath. My lawyer, Paul, sat beside me, giving me a nod of reassurance. I could tell that he believed in our case. It wasn't just about the sale of the house anymore. It was about showing Chloe that there would be consequences for her actions. Chloe's lawyer stood up first, presenting his case. He painted a picture of a couple falling apart. A marriage that couldn't survive the distance of deployment. He spoke about how Sarah had felt abandoned, how she had made the decision to sell the house as a way of moving forward, of letting go of the past. His words didn't faze me. It was the same excuse I had heard countless times before, and I wasn't buying it. She hadn't been abandoned. I had been fighting for us, fighting to make sure we had a future. It wasn't abandonment. It was betrayal. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up slowly. The weight of the moment settled in, but I felt clear-headed. This wasn't just about what happened in the past. This was about the future, about standing up for myself, about making sure this didn't happen to anyone else. "Your Honor," I began, my voice firm but calm. "This isn't just about a house. It's about trust, about partnership. I spent a year overseas, putting my life on the line, believing that I was fighting for my family, for the life we were going to have together. And while I was away, my wife made a decision that affected all of us. A decision I was never consulted on. A decision I was never given a chance to make myself." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. The courtroom was silent, the air thick with anticipation. She sold our home without telling me, without my consent. A home that was meant to be a place where we could grow old together. She took it all without thinking about what it would do to me, to our family. And she did it while I was gone, fighting for our future. I could see Chloe shift uncomfortably in her seat. She couldn't look me in the eye. It was almost as if the truth was finally sinking in. But I didn't care. I wasn't there for her to feel sorry for me. I was there to make sure she understood that there were consequences for her actions. "Your Honor, I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for fairness. I'm asking for what's right. I fought for my country, for my family, and I'm here today, fighting for the life that was stolen from me. There was a long pause before the judge spoke. He looked at the evidence, glanced at Chloe, then back at me. I have reviewed all the documents and the testimony. It is clear that the sale of the house was done without your consent, Mr. Cooper. This was not a fair and equitable decision. I am ruling in your favor. The sale will be reversed, and the house will be returned to you. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it wasn't over. The battle had been won, but the war was still ongoing. Chloe looked like she was about to say something, but I didn't want to hear it. She had made her choice, and now she had to face the consequences. The judge continued, I also suggest mediation for the division of other assets, as there are still outstanding financial matters to be settled. I nodded, but my mind was already elsewhere. I had done what I came to do. I had stood up for myself, for what I had worked for. Chloe might have thought she could tear everything apart, but I had fought back, and I had won. The days after the court ruling felt surreal. I had won, but winning felt empty without the closure I thought it would bring. The house was mine again, but something had changed within me. The anger, the bitterness, and the feelings of betrayal had started to fade, but they hadn't disappeared. It wasn't just the physical loss of the house that haunted me. It was the emotional weight that came with the realization of what Sarah had done. I stood in the living room of the house, now silent except for the echo of my own footsteps. It didn't feel like home anymore. The walls, once filled with memories of laughter and love, now felt like cold reminders of everything I had fought for, everything I had lost. But I wasn't going to let that define me. I had come too far, fought too hard, and survived too much to let this be the end of my story. The house wasn't just a place to live. It was a symbol of something bigger. It was about reclaiming my life, and that wasn't something that could be taken from me. As I stood there, I thought about the battle ahead. The legal victory was important, but it was only one part of the journey. The true battle was going to be within myself. It was about learning to forgive, to let go of the resentment that had built up over the years, and to truly heal from the scars of the past. Olivia had been there for me every step of the way. She was my rock, my constant, and as we spent more time together, I realized just how much she had become a part of my healing. She didn't pressure me. She didn't try to fix me. She simply supported me, allowing me the space to breathe, to think, and to grow. One evening, as we sat together on the back porch, watching the sun set over the horizon, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. I've been thinking a lot, I said, breaking the comfortable silence. About the future. Olivia turned to me, her eyes filled with understanding. What about it? I've spent so long focused on fighting, I admitted. Fighting for my home, for my dignity, for my life. But I think it's time to stop fighting. I need to start living again. I need to focus on what's ahead, not what's behind. She smiled, and for the first time in a long while, I truly believed what I was saying. It wasn't about getting back at Sarah anymore. It wasn't about winning a legal battle. It was about finding peace, about healing, about moving forward. And so I did. Slowly but surely, I started to rebuild my life. I focused on my business, but this time it wasn't about the grind, the hustle, or the money. It was about creating something meaningful. I began mentoring other veterans who had been through similar struggles, helping them find purpose in their lives after service. Felt good to give back, to make a difference. The more I focused on others, the more I realized that I wasn't defined by the mistakes of the past. I wasn't defined by Sarah's betrayal. I wasn't even defined by my time in the war. I was defined by how I chose to live, by the actions I took, the people I helped, and the love I gave. Olivia and I started making plans for the future. It wasn't about rushing into anything. It was about building something together, slowly, carefully, and with intention. She was a part of my life, my present, and now I was ready to let her be a part of my future. But I knew that the real victory wasn't in reclaiming a house or fighting a battle in court. The real victory was in learning how to forgive myself and move on. I had taken back my life, but I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, and that, to me, was the true reward. It had been a few months since the trial, and things had settled into a new routine. My business was growing, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally getting back on my feet. The house was no longer just a building I fought to keep. It had become my sanctuary, a place where I could finally breathe. But even with everything going well on the surface, something was still missing. Trust. It was the one thing I had to rebuild, not just with the world, but with myself. After everything that had happened, I wasn't sure I could trust anyone again. But Olivia had been patient with me, never pushing, always there when I needed her. And for the first time in a long time, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could let someone in. We spent more time together, and our bond grew stronger. Olivia had a way of making everything feel easier, as though the weight of the past wasn't as heavy when we were together. She encouraged me to explore new opportunities, to focus on the future, and to stop looking back. She reminded me that life was about more than just surviving. It was about living, and I needed to start living again. But just as things were beginning to feel stable, life threw me another curveball. Chloe reached out again. This time it was through text. I wasn't sure how to react when I saw her name pop up on my screen. I hadn't spoken to her in months, and to be honest, I hadn't wanted to. The thought of engaging with her again filled me with a sense of dread. But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened the message. "Dylan, we need to talk. It's about the house." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't want to talk to her. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her justifications. But something in the message made me pause. Maybe it was the fact that she was reaching out again, or maybe it was the reminder that the past still had its claws in me. Either way, I knew I had to address it. I texted back, "I'm not interested in going back to the past, Chloe. We're done." She didn't reply right away, but I knew this wouldn't be the last time I heard from her. And honestly, that scared me. The wounds she had caused were still raw, and the thought of reopening them made my stomach churn. But deep down, I knew that if I was ever going to truly move on, I had to face her, one last time. A week later, we arranged to meet. It was in a quiet coffee shop, far from the chaos of everything that had happened. I wanted this conversation to be civil, calm, but I couldn't shake the anger that still lingered. When I saw her walk through the door, my stomach tightened. She looked the same, but there was something different about her. Maybe it was the guilt that hung in the air between us, or maybe it was the realization that she had done something that even she couldn't undo. I couldn't tell, but I didn't care. She sat down across from me, avoiding my gaze. "I know we've been through a lot," she started, her voice soft. "But I just want to explain what happened." I didn't need an explanation. I wasn't here to relive the past. "Chloe, you sold our house. You broke everything we had. You betrayed me when I was fighting for our future." She flinched at my words, but I wasn't going to back down. "And I've spent months trying to rebuild. Not just the house, but my life. I don't need you in it anymore." She looked at me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't read. Regret? Guilt? Or maybe just a fleeting sense of loss. "I never meant for things to turn out this way, Dylan," she said, her voice trembling. I thought I was doing what was best for me. I was scared. I didn't know if you were coming back." I let out a sigh, the weight of her words washing over me. It didn't excuse what she had done, but I understood. She had been scared too. Maybe I was too. But in the end, we had made different choices. And now we had to live with them. "You made your choice, Chloe," I said, my voice steady. "And I made mine. I've let go of the anger, but I can't forget. I've moved on. And I hope you do too." She nodded silently, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I understand, Dylan. I'm sorry." And that was it. I stood up, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. This was the closure I had been seeking. Not in the words she said, but in the decision I had made to let go. The past was behind me, and I was ready to move forward, completely free. It had been a few weeks since the confrontation with Chloe, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. There was still work to do. not just with the house, but with myself. I had faced the betrayal, the anger, and the pain. Now I was ready to face the future. Olivia had been an unwavering presence through all of this. She had stood by me, quietly supporting me, and offering the kind of love and understanding that I never thought I would need, but that I now realized was the thing that had helped me the most. She wasn't pushing me to move faster, to rush into anything. She simply was there, and in her calm, steady way, she helped me heal. We had started talking more about the future, not just about what we could do together, but about who we both wanted to be. Our conversations were no longer just about surviving the past. They were about what we wanted to build, what we wanted our lives to mean. It wasn't easy. I still had moments where the anger would flare up, where the memories of betrayal would haunt me. But every time, Olivia was there to remind me that I didn't have to carry it all alone. And for the first time in a long time, I started believing it. I started believing in myself again. I went back to my work with renewed focus. The business was growing, and I started thinking bigger, thinking about what kind of legacy I wanted to leave behind. It wasn't just about making money or creating something successful. It was about making a difference. I wanted to help others who had been through struggles like mine, veterans who had fought their own battles, not just on the front lines, but back at home trying to reclaim their lives. I began working with local veteran organizations, offering mentorship and guidance to those who needed it. I shared my story, not as a tale of defeat, but as a journey of resilience. I wanted them to know that no matter how hard life got, no matter how deep the betrayal or loss, there was always a way back. There was always a chance for a fresh start. One day, as I sat with a group of young veterans, talking about the struggles they were facing, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just about helping them anymore. It was about using my experience to show others that survival wasn't enough. It was about thriving. I know it's tough, I said to them, my voice steady but passionate. But you're not alone in this. It's not about what's been taken from you. It's about what you can still give, about the future you can still create. Every battle we face is a chance to grow. You have the power to rebuild your life, no matter how far down you think you've fallen. Their eyes were fixed on me, some nodding, others sitting quietly, absorbing every word. I could see the spark of hope returning in their faces, the realization that they didn't have to stay stuck in the past. They didn't have to let their experiences define them in the worst way possible. After the session, Olivia and I walked back to the house, our hands intertwined. The weight of everything that had happened still lingered, but it didn't feel as heavy. I was starting to understand that healing wasn't just about forgetting the past. It was about finding peace with it. It was about using the pain to fuel growth, to make yourself better. As we approached the house, I looked at her and smiled. I think I'm finally starting to see the future clearly, I said. Olivia smiled back, her eyes full of warmth. I'm proud of you, Dylan. You've come so far. I stopped walking, turning to face her fully. I couldn't have done it without you. She shrugged slightly, her smile never fading. You were always strong, Dylan. I just helped remind you of that. And it hit me in that moment that this was what it was all about. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just rebuilding a house, but rebuilding my life. I had learned that the most important thing wasn't the home, the possessions, or the money. It was the people who were there for you when you needed them the most, and the belief that no matter what happened, you had the strength to rise again. As the months went by, I started to settle into my new life. The house was no longer just a place of memories, but a place of rebirth. My business was growing, and with Olivia's support, I had found a sense of balance I had never known before. But just as things seemed to be falling into place, the past came knocking again. Started with a phone call. It was early in the morning, and I had just finished breakfast when my phone rang. The name on the screen wasn't one I recognized, but something told me I should answer it. Hello, I said, trying to shake off the grogginess of sleep. Mr. Cooper? The voice on the other end was formal, a little too stiff. This is Detective Lawson with the local police department. I need to speak with you about a matter regarding your ex-wife, Chloe. My heart dropped into my stomach. I hadn't heard from Chloe in months. After our last conversation, I had hoped we'd never cross paths again. I had moved on, and I thought she had too. But the uncertainty in the detective's voice told me this wasn't something I could ignore. "What about Chloe?" I asked, my voice tight. "We've received reports of suspicious activity related to her financial dealings. She's in some trouble, and it seems to be connected to her actions during your divorce," the detective explained. "We'd like to meet with you to discuss any information you might have." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. Suspicious activity? Financial troubles? The betrayal I had already suffered was bad enough, but now it seemed like Chloe's actions were coming back to haunt her, and possibly me. I knew I couldn't turn my back on this. If my name was involved in any way, I needed to make sure it didn't drag me down again. I agreed to meet with the detective the next day. As I walked into the police station, the gravity of the situation settled in. The familiar sense of uncertainty, the feeling of being in a battle I wasn't prepared for, crept back into my chest. I had fought for my home, my dignity, and my future. Now it seemed I had to fight again. This time it wasn't just for myself, but to make sure that Chloe's mistakes didn't pull me under once more. Detective Lawson led me into a small interrogation room, and we sat across from each other, the sterile, white walls adding to the tension. "Here's what we know," he began, sliding a folder across the table. "There have been inconsistencies in Chloe's financial records, and we've traced some of her activities to a series of transactions that don't add up. We believe there may be fraudulent actions connected to the sale of your property." I felt my pulse quicken. I had always suspected that Chloe's decision to sell the house wasn't just about getting away from me. There had to be something more to it. But to hear the words fraudulent actions spoken aloud was like a slap in the face. "What does that mean for me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The detective looked me in the eye. "We need your cooperation in the investigation. We'll need your testimony about the sale of the house and any other details you can provide. If you were unaware of these transactions, it could help establish that you were a victim, not complicit in any wrongdoing." I nodded, my mind racing. Chloe had made her decision to betray me, but now it seemed like that betrayal had spiraled into something far worse. I didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went, but I was starting to realize that this wasn't just a fight for my life anymore. It was a fight for my freedom. The investigation was going to take time, and I had to prepare for the possibility that Chloe's actions could cost me everything. Again. But this time, I wasn't going to let her win. I had been through hell and back, and there was no way I was going to let her take me down with her. I walked out of the police station, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. Olivia was waiting for me in the car, her eyes filled with concern when she saw my expression. I didn't need to say anything. She already knew something was wrong. "Is it Chloe?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I replied, rubbing my forehead. "She's in deeper trouble than I thought. And now it looks like I might be dragged into it." Olivia reached over and took my hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together. You've already overcome so much. This is just another battle." Her words, as simple as they were, gave me the strength I needed to face the storm that was coming. I wasn't alone anymore. I had Olivia, I had my children, and I had a new life to protect. And I would fight for it. The next few weeks were filled with sleepless nights and endless meetings with lawyers and detectives. I thought the hardest part was behind me. The betrayal, the legal battle over the house. But now, I was in the middle of something far worse than I could have imagined. Chloe had gone too far, and now I had to face the repercussions of her actions. I sat in the office of my lawyer, Paul, going over the details of the case. The police had sent over their findings, and what they uncovered was worse than I could have anticipated. Chloe's financial dealings were more complicated than just selling the house. There was fraud, misappropriation of funds, and a web of lies she had woven to cover her tracks. It wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage. It was a betrayal of the trust of everyone she came in contact with. She didn't just sell the house, Paul explained, pointing to the documents on the table. She used the proceeds to funnel money into other accounts, all under false pretenses. She might be facing more than just financial penalties. This could lead to criminal charges. My mind was spinning. I knew she had been dishonest, but this was a whole new level of betrayal. I had thought our divorce was the worst part of this whole ordeal, but now, it felt like I was being dragged into something far darker. I had to admit it, I was scared. Scared not just for myself, but for my children. How could I protect them from all of this? How could I explain to them that the woman they once called Mom had done this? The anger I felt was no longer just about her selling the house. It was about the deception, the manipulation, and the thought that she had been planning this all along. The investigation was moving quickly. I knew Chloe had likely already consulted a lawyer of her own, but this was beyond what she could have imagined. I was no longer just a victim in a divorce. I was a witness in a criminal case, a case that was going to make her face the consequences of her actions. That evening, Olivia and I sat together on the couch, talking through the events of the day. She had been a rock throughout this entire ordeal, but I could see the strain in her eyes. She had been with me through everything, through the darkest days of my deployment, the chaos of my return, and now through the aftermath of this mess with Chloe. What's going to happen now? Olivia asked, her voice full of concern. I don't know, I admitted. I'm just trying to make sense of all of this. Chloe didn't just sell our house. She's done so much more, and I'm not sure how deep this goes. But I know one thing. I'm not going to let her destroy everything I've worked for. I've already fought for this house, for my life. I'm not stopping now. Olivia squeezed my hand, her support unwavering. Whatever happens, Dylan, you're not alone. We'll face it together. You've come so far. You're not going to let her drag you back down. You've fought too hard to get here. I nodded, feeling a sense of calm settle in. She was right. No matter how hard things got, I had already proven to myself that I could get through the worst of it. This wasn't going to be the end. This was just another battle in a war I had already survived. The next day, I received a call from Detective Lawson. They had gathered enough evidence to bring Chloe in for questioning. They wanted me to be there. I knew this was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I would finally have the opportunity to see Chloe face the consequences of her actions. But even as I thought about it, a part of me wasn't sure I was ready for it. I had spent so much time trying to forget the past, but now it was all coming back, crashing into me like a wave. Mr. Cooper, Detective Lawson said on the phone, we're preparing to bring Chloe in for questioning. We need your presence during the interview. If you're willing to cooperate, we'll move forward with the charges. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'll be there, I said, my voice firm. Let's bring this to an end. The day of the interview, I stood outside the police station, my mind racing. This was the final step, the end of the long road of betrayal, pain, and loss. I had fought for everything, and now it was time for Chloe to face what she had done. As I walked into the interrogation room, Chloe sat across from me, her face pale and strained. She wouldn't look at me, her eyes focused on the table in front of her. I felt nothing for her anymore. The anger, the bitterness, it had all faded into something else. Resolve. Chloe, I said, my voice steady. You've caused more pain than I can put into words. You took everything from me, but I'm not going to let you take my peace. Not anymore. Her eyes flickered, but she remained silent. Detective Lawson spoke next, presenting the evidence. Chloe's face was a mask of defiance, but I could see the cracks starting to show. She knew she was cornered. She knew that there was no escape from what she had done. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had the upper hand. This wasn't just about getting the house back or protecting my future. This was about confronting the truth, about finally being able to stand tall and say that I had taken control of my life again. The interview continued, and Chloe's defenses slowly crumbled. I didn't need to say much. The evidence spoke for itself. And when it was over, I knew one thing for certain. She couldn't hurt me anymore. It had been weeks since the interview with Chloe, and the weight that had been hanging over me for so long finally started to lift. The legal proceedings were still ongoing, but I had already won the battle that mattered most. I had taken back control of my life. Chloe had faced the consequences of her actions, and while she may have been forced to pay the price, I was the one who had walked away with my dignity intact. But even as I sat in my new office, feeling the buzz of productivity and accomplishment, a lingering question still haunted me. What's next? I had reclaimed my house, I had fought for my future, and I had even started rebuilding relationships that mattered. But something was missing. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving, yes, but was I truly happy? Did I feel whole again? The truth was, I was still learning how to live fully. The betrayal had shaped me, but it didn't define me. The house was beautiful and it was mine, but it still didn't feel like home in the way it once had. Home wasn't just a place, it was a feeling. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that my definition of home had changed. I was walking down the street one afternoon, deep in thought, when I saw a group of children playing in the park. They were laughing, carefree, completely immersed in the joy of the moment. And for the first time in ages, I found myself smiling without thinking about the past or the battles I had fought. There was still so much joy left in the world, so much life to be lived. Olivia had been patient with me and I had been patient with myself. But the time had come for me to truly embrace everything that was waiting for me. I had spent so much time looking back, dealing with the damage of the past, that I had forgotten what it meant to move forward without the chains of resentment holding me back. That night, I sat down with Olivia, the woman who had become my anchor in a storm I never saw coming. She had stood by me through everything, always offering love and understanding, never pushing but always present when I needed her. "I've been thinking," I said, my voice quiet but steady. "I think it's time for us to move forward, truly forward. Not just in the way I've been doing, but in every way." Olivia looked at me, her eyes full of curiosity and warmth. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been stuck in the past for so long, trying to make sense of what happened with Chloe, with the house, with everything. But the truth is, I've already fought that battle. And now I want to fight for the future, for us, for what we can create together." She smiled, a soft and knowing smile, as if she had seen this coming. "You've already fought for so much, Dylan. Now it's time to let the future in." And so we began to plan. Not just for the house, but for everything we wanted to build. We talked about starting new projects, about traveling the world, and about the legacy we wanted to leave for our children. I wanted them to see that no matter what happened in life, we could always create something beautiful. We could always rebuild, no matter how many times we were knocked down. It wasn't about wealth or success. It wasn't about the house or the car or the things we could accumulate. It was about making a difference, about living a life that meant something, about showing my children that life wasn't just about surviving but thriving and helping others do the same. The following months passed in a blur of activity. The business was thriving and I was finally able to take Olivia and the kids on the vacation we talked about for so long. It wasn't about escaping the past, it was about creating new memories, making new experiences, and celebrating the future we were building together. The house, once a symbol of betrayal, was now a symbol of resilience and new beginnings. Each room I walked into felt more like home. It was no longer just four walls, it was the place where we could grow, laugh, and love again. And for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to embrace everything the future had to offer. I had fought, I had survived, and now I was finally ready to live. As the final chapter of this journey began, I found myself standing on the edge of something new. The past had been a storm, a series of battles both on the front lines and in my own home, and yet here I was, still standing. I had fought for everything I believed in, and in the end, I realized that the real battle wasn't just about survival, it was about embracing the future with open arms. With Olivia by my side, I felt like I could conquer anything. We had built something real together, a bond forged through struggle, perseverance, and love. The scars from the past were still there, but they no longer defined me. They were reminders of the strength I had found within myself to move forward, to live. The first step was, Olivia was right there with me, helping me navigate this new phase. She had always been my strength, but now I could see that we were creating something even greater together. We weren't just building our future, we were building a legacy for our children. "Do you think we're ready for this?" Olivia asked one night as we discussed the next step in our business expansion. I looked at her, the woman who had been there through thick and thin, the one who had stood by me when I couldn't stand up for myself. "I don't think there's ever a perfect moment, but I know we're ready. Together." The next few months flew by in a blur of meetings, late nights, and long hours. We were building something meaningful and it felt right. But more than that, we were living a life that mattered. The business was thriving, but our focus had shifted. It wasn't just about profits anymore, it was about making a difference. It was about showing others that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you can always rise again. I spent more time with my children, teaching them the lessons I had learned the hard way. "Life isn't just about what you get," I told them one night as we sat around the dinner table, "it's about what you give. It's about making the world a little better than it was before you came into it." They were young, but I could see the spark in their eyes. They understood. They were already learning what it meant to overcome obstacles, to keep moving forward no matter how tough things got. And for the first time in a long time, I knew I was doing the right thing. I was creating a future that would not only shape my life but theirs as well. And Olivia, she was there every step of the way. We went on trips, took time off, and allowed ourselves to enjoy the life we had built. For so long, I had been focused on the grind, on surviving. But now I was focused on thriving. On being present. On living in the moment. The house, once a symbol of betrayal, had become a place of peace, a place of memories and new beginnings. I had learned that it wasn't about the bricks and mortar, but about the people inside. It was about the love, the laughter, and the life we had built together. It was about embracing the future, knowing that whatever came our way, we could face it together. As I stood on the balcony one evening, watching the sunset, I thought about how far I had come. From the broken man who returned from war to the man who had reclaimed his life, I had rebuilt everything. I had rebuilt myself. The future wasn't certain. There would always be challenges, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew that with Olivia, my children, and the lessons I had learned, I could handle anything. The past had tried to break me, but in the end, it was the past that made me who I was today, a man who was no longer a victim but a survivor. And now I was ready to live. This journey of survival, resilience, and redemption is far from over. But it's not just my story, it's yours too. Have you ever faced betrayal, and how did you rise above it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of strength, survival, and new beginnings. And remember, every challenge you face is just another opportunity to rebuild your future, just like Dylan did. Join me on this journey. Let's grow, learn, and overcome together. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter.